here to talk about a few positive things that President Trump has done, because it tends to get drowned out by all the controversy and the backbiting and the infighting that dominate the news. So just for a change of pace, let's say that yesterday the president had a pretty successful meeting with Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, and particularly setting up a meeting with female entrepreneurs and business executives. Ivanka sat in on that. Was a relatively shrewd move for a president who has had his problems in the past with female voters. And you recall, of course, the massive march, Women's March in Washington and other major U.S. cities around the time of the inauguration. Then there was the weekend where President Trump and Prime Minister Abe of Japan not only had a successful meeting, but they played golf together. He took them down to Mar-a-Lago, thereby, cementing a relationship with our probably most important Pacific ally. And then there are other more subtle things. I mean, it doesn't get that much attention, but Trump is in the middle of an enormous rollback of regulations, or at least attempting to get rid of many federal regulations. This, of course, is controversial. A lot of environmentalists, union leaders, and others don't like it, but it's what he said he was going to do, and it could be the most far-reaching regulatory rollback since the days of Ronald Reagan. And even on Obamacare, here he's getting some criticism from his base for not having already done it, but repealing and replacing the healthcare program is a complicated piece of business, and he has kind of tamped down expectations by saying this may not be in place until the end of the year or the beginning of next year. Better, in my view, than rushing to do something that turns out to be totally flawed, and then, of course, he would be blamed for that. But all the things I just mentioned get, a modest amount of coverage, but instead you're seeing other stories that are getting an enormous amount of coverage. Exhibit A, Stephen Miller, the White House official, was on all the Sunday shows except CNN. They don't like CNN very much. And the other day. And he made some comments about the courts. Of course, Miller was one of the key guys on the travel ban overturned by an appellate panel in the Ninth Circuit. And Miller just sort of went off on unelected judges, and the president's going to protect the country in the foreign policy area, and he should not be questioned on that. But a lot of people thought, a lot of critics in the media, I should say, thought it sounded rather authoritarian. Then there's Michael Flynn, the national security advisor, under enormous fire, and some people calling for him to resign after that story last week in the Washington Post, 9 unnamed sources saying that he had conversations before the inauguration about lifting U.S. sanctions with the Russian ambassador, and the complication here is that Flynn apparently was not straight with Vice President Pence, who went out and defended him. So Flynn is at the center of a huge storm. And then there are all these infighting stories about, is Trump going to shake up his White House staff? Is even Reince Priebus safe? Who's to blame? Whose heads are going to roll for the rocky and bungled rollout of the temporary travel ban? Not whether you agree with the policy or not, but the way in which it was rushed and rolled out, and they still haven't decided where to appeal. Now, all these are legitimate stories, but when you look at, then you've got the Grammys and the Hollywood performers once again taking shots at President Trump, even Busta Rhymes calling him President Agent Orange and evil. I really don't care what these people think about politics. I don't think many Americans don't either. But the point is that Trump is doing some important things right. It's getting completely overshadowed by these other controversies, some of which are self-inflicted, some of which are the media gearing up against him. And I think it's important to keep a little balance. The guy hasn't even been president of the United States for a month. It's a little too soon to talk about what terrible shape his presidency is in, because some of the things he wants to accomplish take time. The media, of course, just operate on the latest news cycle.